Nick Fuentes is not smart, Nick Fuentes does not make good arguments, and honestly, he's a waste of my time. He's not my intellectual equal, but lucky for me, his stupidity is content, so we're going to squeeze some educational value out of this hot dumpster of an interview with Piers and make it worth your watch. And I'm not doing 2 hours of this interview. I made it to about 35 minutes before my brain started telling me, okay, we got better shit to do. And honestly, I'm not interested in watching the rest of it, and so for that reason, we're only going to be analyzing 3 moments, and I think that is already enough.
White people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. You might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. Better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than get stabbed, mugged, whatever. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part, and we would live in paradise. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that. You just said blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. Just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No.
This is Nick's go-to move. Take a statistic about a group and pretend it somehow applies to every individual member of that group. This is called an ecological fallacy. It's when you take group-level data and pretend it predicts individual behavior. For example, if 5% of white men are violent, you don't walk past every white man thinking you have a 5% chance of being attacked. This is not how statistics work. 5% of black men are violent, so there's a 5% chance that any black man I walk past is violent. That feels intuitive, but it's completely wrong because risk is not evenly distributed in real life. Violent people cluster certain neighborhoods, certain social networks, certain life histories, certain economic conditions, certain backgrounds. So taking a population level statistic and slapping it onto a random individual is logically invalid. Let's actually apply Nick Fuentes' logic for a second. According to stats, about 5% of black Americans get arrested for violent crimes in a given year. By the way, this is arrests. Just because you're arrested, it doesn't mean that you are guilty. About 5% of black Americans get arrested for violent crimes in a given year, and for white Americans, that number is at about 2%. So the difference is 3%. Is that really enough to justify avoiding black people entirely? Like you need to go full on ninja mode because of a 3% difference? You see how absurd that is? If you take his own logic, you should also be avoiding white people. It's only a 3% difference, god damn it. And I'm aware that Nick might not actually sit around thinking,
oh, there's a black person there, 5% chance that person is aggressive.
He probably actually thinks that number is much higher. Let's be honest, if he sees an individual, he probably thinks it's 50-50, god damn it. But he might come out and say, no, that's not how I look at statistics. I'm not stupid. But the way that he brings up these numbers, the way that he frames everything, the way that he cherry picks, it's abundantly clear that this is exactly how his brain is functioning. He treats the statistics as if they map directly onto individuals, and he expects you to nod along. Textbook ecological fallacy. Now let's talk about the per capita argument. Some people will say, yeah, 2% of white Americans commit violent crimes, but the white population is bigger, so black people are more dangerous per capita.
Damn wait, hell no! What is it? Talking about they out of chicken. What? Listen, they ran out of chicken?
This is some old bull.
No chicken? You mean I ain't gonna be able to get that bucket?
Sure, technically that's true. If you crunch the numbers, smaller populations with slightly higher percentages can have a higher rate. But here's where it falls apart. Per capita stats don't translate to individual risk. Again, even if the per capita rate is higher, you still have zero idea if the person walking past you is part of that tiny percentage. Per capita crime rates track conditions, not race. This is the piece people avoid because it kills their argument. When you factor in poverty, a local economic collapse, neighborhood disinvestment, the per capita racial gap shrinks dramatically. Per capita numbers aren't measuring blackness. they're measuring environmental harm that disproportionately hits black communities. It's ridiculous. So we know poverty is the #1 deciding factor. Nothing about this is genetic, it's structural. And if someone tries to argue otherwise, ask them why indigenous people in Canada, a completely different race, different history, different culture, are also disproportionately incarcerated. Why? The same conditions: poverty, colonization, systemic neglect, and generational trauma. So if crime were racial, explain that. You can't, because the pattern isn't about race, it's about circumstances. So why am I yapping so much to counter the per capita argument? It's not because I'm talking in circles and he's made such a good argument. No, I'm giving you context. When you name the per capita stats, you're only naming the per capita stats, but you're not giving actual context behind the number. And then you're using that number to weaponize it against black folks. That is racist. It's false and it's also misleading. Even with those per capita stats, it still should not incentivize you to avoid black people altogether, because once again, this would be an ecological fallacy. If Nick Fuentes and the people who thought like Nick Fuentes were actually honest, they would say avoid high poverty areas late at night. That is totally reasonable and it applies everywhere in the world. But instead they jump to avoid black people. That leap exposes their bias more clearly than any insult ever could. And by the way, yes, black people are statistically more likely to be victims of violent crime. Nick Fuentes loves to twist this into, see, even black people hate living around black people.
And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Which, by the way, gets the raccoons of the black community clapping like seals.
But also the most insightful thing that I've watched probably this entire year. And before we even get into it, clearly I am black. And
You damn cold!
It's easy. Have you ever looked at them? White man just a joy to be around. They smell like lemon juice and pledge furniture cleaner. And look at them, they gave us discipline.
And makes the white supremacist crowd feel like he just dropped a bombshell. But it's not true. Black people move out of the hood when they get money for the same reason anyone moves out of a poor neighborhood anywhere in the world. They don't want to live around poverty because poverty breeds crime. This is not a racial insight, it's basic economics. A lot of Americans can't expand their worldview beyond their own backyard, or in Nick Fuentes' case, the south side of Chicago. Come to Chicago, check it out.
And that's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son
we could
went
go
to Chicago.
Inglewood. You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there.
They see poor black neighborhoods and assume blackness equals criminality. No, they're confusing cause with condition. Go literally anywhere else in the world. Latin America, Eastern Europe, South Asia, and the poorest people will have the highest crime rates. Those people aren't black, they're just poor.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
So no, Nick, you don't get to reframe poverty as proof of racial inferiority. The same poverty which isn't a reflection of anyone's personal failure or worth, but the result of structural barriers that make it much harder for a lot of people to get ahead. Now, I'm not excusing bad behavior, and personal choices do matter, but structural barriers exist. I've already named a few, and I could go deeper in another video, but that's not the point here. We have to move on. We have to move on to the Applebee's story because this part had me rolling my eyes into the next fucking dimension. Nick Fuentes spends the entire segment acting like Piers Morgan committed some kind of deep moral crime by bringing up a story that, let's be very clear, Nick himself told publicly.
Podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. My family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say.
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdote.
The whole time he keeps repeating, you know what you're doing, Piers, you know what you're doing. Like he's being targeted, like he's the victim, like Piers is plotting some elaborate trap to expose his poor little innocent father. No, shut up. Your dad says some racist shit, and you told the story proudly. You don't get to play victim now. Nick tries to frame it like, oh, Piers, you're trying to get my dad fired. We live in a world with extreme censorship. Bro, your dad didn't get targeted. Your dad outed himself by refusing to go to Applebee's because black people were there. That's not censorship. That's called being racist and getting called out. F that. And then here comes the classic defense. Nick tries to sweep it all away by saying his dad can't be racist because he worked with black people. He apparently even taught a bunch of black folks how to shoot at a gun range. I think he even mentioned Larry Hoover's son. It was kind of interesting. And Nick throws in the all-time favorite.
My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family.
Brother, this guy stinks!
I had a black friend in first grade. Like racism melts in the presence of a childhood playdate. It's textbook plausible deniability, except it's not even plausible. You can work with black people and still be racist. You can teach them, talk to them, laugh with them, and still hold racist beliefs. Racists don't live in caves whispering slurs to each other. They function in society every day. And the way Nick panics, repeating, you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing, like a broken record, exposes exactly how fragile this whole act is. He's mad that Piers held up a mirror and the reflection wasn't pretty. Now let me talk about Nick's entire vibe during this interview. Because every time racism comes up, he gets this little smirk, this creepy, self-satisfied grin, like he's getting off on being racist. It's weird, it's childish, it's like racism is the only thing in his life that gives him a little emotional buzz. And honestly, if that's what gives him a thrill, I get it. It's not like he's getting off with women. Yes, that was a reference to the viral moment where Piers Morgan asked him if he's ever had sex, and Nick proudly said no. And this is the perfect segue into the moment people keep twisting, the moment where Piers mocked our good little Catholic boy for being celibate. First of all, I don't think he's celibate by choice. Let's not kid ourselves. And second, Piers wasn't mocking celibacy at all. He wasn't saying you're a bad person because you don't have sex. That's not the point. Piers was pointing out something very simple that Knicks fans pretend they don't understand. You can't spend your whole life ranting about women, insulting women, dismissing women, and acting like you're an authority on women when you have zero first-hand experience with women. It wasn't anti-Christian, it wasn't anti-celibacy, it was anti-talking out of your ass about a group of people you've never interacted with in a meaningful way. If you're going to sit there declaring that women are annoying and should shut up, maybe have at least one trace of lived experience with women. This isn't prudishness versus promiscuity, it's not haha virgin versus haha Chad, it's not a purity debate, it's credibility versus zero credibility. And this whole Christian angle, I already exposed it in my last video about Charlie Kirk. You can check that out if you want. Yeah, this whole Christian thing, man, get the out of my face with that bullshit, man. You. How disingenuous do you have to be to say that this guy's a Christian? This guy is so racist. But you know what they say, there is no hate like Christian love. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching the video.